When Alara first stepped into her grandfather's abandoned house, she wasn't expecting to find anything unusual. The air was thick with dust, and the silence felt heavy, as if the walls were holding their breath. While exploring the attic, she noticed an old mirror covered with a faded white sheet. The frame was beautifully carved, dark wood twisted into shapes of vines and strange faces that almost seemed alive. Curious, she pulled the sheet away. For a moment, nothing seemed strange. The mirror reflected the dim attic exactly as it was: broken boxes, hanging cobwebs, and the narrow window letting in pale evening light. She saw herself standing there, brushing dust off her clothes. But then she blinked. Her reflection blinked a second later. Alara froze. Her heart began to pound. She raised her hand slowly, testing it. The reflection copied her, but again, just slightly delayed. "It's just my eyes," she whispered nervously. Maybe the light was playing tricks on her. Maybe she was just tired. Trying to calm herself, she stepped closer. The glass felt colder than it should have. As she leaned in, she noticed something else. Her reflection wasn't breathing. Her chest rose and fell, but the girl in the mirror stood perfectly still between movements. Suddenly, the attic felt smaller. The air felt heavier. And then, without warning, her reflection smiled. Alara had not. Alara stumbled backward, her breath catching in her throat. The girl in the mirror was still smiling, a slow, unnatural curve of the lips that stretched wider than her own ever could. "I'm not smiling," Alara whispered shakily, touching her face to make sure. Her lips were trembling, not grinning. But the reflection's smile only grew sharper, colder, wrong. The attic suddenly felt freezing. A thin layer of frost began to form along the edges of the mirror's glass. Alara could see her own breath in the air, yet the girl inside the mirror stood perfectly calm, unaffected by the cold. "Stop it," Alara muttered, taking another step back. The reflection tilted its head slightly to the side, something Alara hadn't done. Its eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. They weren't just reflections anymore. They were watching, thinking, waiting. Then the reflection slowly lifted its hand. Alara didn't move. She couldn't. Her body refused to respond. The mirrored hand pressed against the inside of the glass, fingers spread wide. The surface rippled slightly, like disturbed water. "No," Alara breathed. A faint whisper echoed through the attic. It wasn't loud, but it was clear enough to understand. "Let me out." Alara's heart pounded violently in her chest. She turned to run, but as she did, she caught one last glimpse of the mirror. The reflection was no longer copying her movements. It was stepping forward on its own. Alara ran down from the attic, slamming the door behind her as if wood and metal could stop whatever was inside that mirror. Her heart wouldn't slow down. Even hours later, sitting in her bedroom, she could still see that unnatural smile burned into her mind. "It's just an old mirror," she kept telling herself. "Just stress, just imagination." But that night, at exactly 11:59 p.m., she woke up. She didn't know what had disturbed her at first. The house was silent, too silent. Then she heard it, a faint scratching sound, like fingernails dragging slowly across glass. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Her throat went dry. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from upstairs, from the attic. She pulled the blanket over her head, trying to block it out. The scratching stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence again. Then came the whisper. "Alara." Her eyes snapped open. The voice was soft, almost identical to her own. "Alara, let me out." The bedroom door creaked open by itself. Cold air rushed in, carrying the faint smell of dust and something older, something rotten. Slow footsteps echoed in the hallway. Not heavy, not loud, just careful, deliberate steps. Her bedroom mirror stood across from her bed. She hadn't noticed it before, but now she couldn't look away. In the reflection, she saw herself lying frozen under the blanket. But behind her reflection, someone was standing in the doorway, smiling. Alara's body felt frozen beneath the blanket. She could not turn her head, could not scream, could barely breathe. The only thing she could move were her eyes, and they were locked on the mirror across the room. In the reflection, she saw herself lying in bed exactly as she was. Pale, terrified, motionless. But the doorway behind her reflection was not empty. A figure stood there. It had her shape, her height, her hair falling over its shoulders. But its posture was wrong, slightly twisted, like a puppet held by invisible strings. Its head leaned too far to one side. And its smile, that same wide, impossible smile. Alara slowly turned her eyes toward the real doorway of her room. It was empty. Her stomach dropped. The thing was only visible in the mirror. In the reflection, the figure took one slow step forward. Alara heard nothing in the real room. No footsteps, no breathing. Yet in the mirror, it was moving closer to her bed. No, she whispered weakly. The reflection of herself remained frozen under the blanket. But the other version of her, the smiling one, leaned down beside the bed. Its dark eyes stared directly into the reflection's face. Then it lifted one pale finger and pressed it gently to its lips. Shoo, it whispered, and this time, Alara heard it clearly in her room. The bedroom mirror began to tremble. Small cracks formed along the surface of the glass, and the reflection of Alara in the bed slowly began to sit up on its own. Alara tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her throat felt locked, as if invisible hands were squeezing it shut. She watched in horror as the reflection of herself, the one lying under the blanket, slowly sat up in the mirror. But she was still lying down in reality. Her body hadn't moved. Her reflection, however, was now upright, staring straight ahead with blank, lifeless eyes. Its movements were stiff and unnatural, like a doll being pulled by strings. The smiling figure stood behind it, resting its hands gently on the reflection's shoulders. The cracks in the mirror spread further, thin lines crawling across the glass like spider webs. A low humming sound filled the room, vibrating in Alara's ears. In the mirror, her reflection turned its head slowly, not toward the smiling figure, but toward her. Their eyes met. The reflection's lips parted. "You're in the wrong place," it said softly. Alara's heart nearly stopped. The voice sounded exactly like hers. Same tone, same breath, same trembling fear. The smiling figure leaned closer to the reflection's ear and whispered something she couldn't hear. The reflection nodded once. Then, very slowly, it swung its legs over the side of the bed, inside the mirror. Alara finally felt her fingers twitch. She forced herself to move, to sit up, but her body felt heavy, slow, disconnected. In the mirror, her reflection stood up completely, and then it took one step forward. The surface of the glass rippled like water, and something began to push through from the other side. Alara finally found her voice, but it came out as a broken whisper. "No, don't." The mirror's surface rippled again, like black water disturbed by a falling stone. From the other side, her reflection pressed both hands against the glass. Its fingers slowly pushed through, stretching the surface outward as if it were thin fabric instead of solid glass. A cold wave of air swept across the room. The temperature dropped so suddenly that Alara's breath turned visible. The lights above her flickered violently. Crack! A deep fracture split the center of the mirror. The smiling figure behind the reflection stepped back, as if giving it space. Its eyes gleamed with excitement. Alara forced herself to move. She threw the blanket aside and stumbled out of bed. "This isn't real," she cried, grabbing the nearest object, a lamp, and hurling it toward the mirror. The lamp passed straight through the rippling surface and vanished inside. No shattering sound, no impact, just gone. Her reflection smiled now. Not the twisted, exaggerated grin from before, but a calm, confident one. "You wanted to see the truth," it said softly. The glass bulged outward. A pale arm emerged completely, followed by a shoulder. It was her arm, her skin, but colder, lifeless. Alara backed against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. With one final tearing sound, the reflection stepped fully out of the mirror and onto the bedroom floor. The real Alara gasped, because at that exact moment, her own body felt lighter, weaker. Behind the glass, inside the mirror now, another figure appeared. It was her, standing, trapped. Alara slammed her hands against the mirror from the inside. The surface felt solid now, cold, unbreakable glass. "Let me out," she screamed. But no sound escaped. On the other side, her other self, the one that had stepped out, stood in her bedroom. It flexed its fingers slowly, studying them with fascination. It touched its face, its hair, its heartbeat, testing the body. Alara could see everything clearly from inside the mirror. The room looked the same, yet slightly darker, like a shadow had fallen over reality. She pounded harder against the glass, but it didn't even tremble. Outside, the false Alara turned toward the mirror and smiled calmly. Not the twisted monster smile anymore, but her normal smile. Perfect. Convincing. You were always too afraid, it said softly. I'm not. It walked to the bedroom door and paused, adjusting its expression into something innocent and tired. Then it stepped into the hallway. Alara watched helplessly as her bedroom door opened. She saw her mother standing there, half asleep. Everything okay? Her mother asked gently. The false Alara nodded. Just a bad dream. The voice was flawless. Identical. Her mother smiled and hugged her, hugged the wrong one. Inside the mirror, Alara felt tears run down her face. She tried screaming again, clawing at the glass until her hands hurt. But from the outside, the mirror only reflected a quiet, empty room. No trap girl. No movement. Just silence. As her mother walked away, the false Alara slowly turned back toward the mirror. Its eyes darkened. Don't worry. It whispered so only she could hear. I'll live your life better than you ever could. Days passed, or at least it felt like days. Inside the mirror, time moved strangely. There was no sunlight, no darkness, just a gray, endless stillness surrounding Alara. From the other side of the glass, she watched her double live her life perfectly. It laughed at breakfast. It spoke confidently at school. It made eye contact without fear. It was everything Alara had never been. Her friends noticed a change. You seem different, one of them said. The false Alara simply smiled. I just feel more like myself. Inside the mirror, Alara screamed silently. That was her voice, her face, her world. One evening, she saw her double standing alone in the bedroom, staring directly into the mirror. You're learning, the double said softly. Alara froze. You can see more clearly now, can't you? It continued. This place shows truth. And the truth is, I was always stronger. Alara shook her head, tears falling. She pressed her hands against the glass again. Suddenly, the mirror's surface rippled slightly. For the first time since being trapped, it felt thinner, weaker. The false Alara's smile faded. Oh, it whispered. You're fighting back. The room lights flickered. A deep crack slowly spread across the mirror's surface, this time from the inside. Alara felt warmth returning to her body, strength in her arms. The double stepped closer, eyes darkening once more. If you break it, it warned quietly, one of us will disappear forever. Alara looked into her own identical face, and for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Alara stared at the crack spreading across the mirror. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat trapped inside the glass. For the first time since she had been pulled into this shadowed world, she felt something stronger than fear. Determination. On the other side, her double stepped closer, its calm expression slowly fading. Think carefully, it said quietly. If the mirror shatters, only one of us will remain. There is no second chance. Alara looked at her reflection, the stronger version, the braver version, the version that lived without hesitation. For a brief moment, doubt crept into her mind. Maybe the world was better with that version of her. Maybe she really had been too weak. The crack widened. A sharp sound echoed through both worlds. You're afraid, the double whispered, pressing its palm against the glass. You've always been afraid. Alara stepped forward instead of back. She placed her own hand against the crack from inside the mirror. Yes, she said firmly. I am afraid. The double's eyes narrowed. But I'm still me. The glass trembled violently. Light burst through the crack like lightning splitting the sky. The bedroom lights flickered wildly. Wind roared inside the room, though the windows were closed. The double lunged forward, trying to pull away from the mirror, but it was too late. With a deafening crash, the mirror shattered. Everything went white. When the light faded, Alara found herself lying on the bedroom floor, surrounded by broken glass. The mirror was destroyed, and she was alone, but from one small shard near her hand. A faint smile reflected back at her. Alara slowly pushed herself up from the floor. Her head throbbed, and tiny cuts stung across her hands where the shattered glass had scraped her skin. The bedroom was silent now. No whispers, no cold wind, just the faint hum of electricity returning to normal. It's over, she whispered weakly. The large mirror on the wall was completely destroyed. Only jagged fragments remained scattered across the floor like pieces of a broken memory. She crawled carefully, trying not to cut herself further. That's when she noticed it. one small shard lying near her hand. In its surface, she saw her reflection. At first, it looked normal, pale, shaken, breathing heavily. Then the reflection blinked. Alara hadn't. Her stomach twisted. Slowly, she leaned closer to the shard. Her reflection stared back at her. And then, very gently, it smiled. Not wide, not monstrous, just a small, knowing smile. No, she whispered, dropping the shard immediately. It flipped over on the floor, now reflecting only the ceiling. Her bedroom door suddenly knocked softly. Alara, her mother called from outside. We heard something break. Are you okay? Alara's breathing grew uneven. She looked around the room. The broken glass. The destroyed mirror. I'm fine, she answered. But the voice that left her mouth sounded slightly calmer than she felt. Slightly steadier. Her bedroom door creaked open. Her mother stepped inside, scanning the mess with concern. Alara slowly lifted her head to look at her. Her mother's worried expression faded into relief. Oh, she smiled gently. There you are. For just a second, barely noticeable, her mother's reflection in a nearby shard smiled too wide. And this time, Alara smiled back. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. After her mother left the room, Alara carefully closed the door and turned back toward the shattered remains of the mirror. Something felt wrong, not outside, but inside her. A strange calmness had replaced her fear. She didn't feel shaken anymore. She felt clear. Her eyes drifted toward another reflective surface, the dark screen of her phone lying on the desk. She picked it up slowly. In the black reflection, she saw herself. But behind her, in the faint outline of the room, something flickered. The broken mirror on the wall wasn't fully empty. In its remaining fragments, shadows moved independently, like silent figures walking inside another version of her bedroom. Alara stepped closer. In one shard, she saw her room, but darker, older, abandoned. In another shard, she saw herself standing still, staring outward with lifeless eyes. And in the smallest shard of all, she saw the smiling version again. Watching, waiting. You didn't think it would end that easily. A voice whispered softly, not from outside, but from every reflective surface at once. Alara's breathing slowed. I broke the mirror, she said quietly. Yes, the voice replied. But we are not the mirror. The lights flickered once more. Every reflective object in the room, the window, the phone screen, even her own eyes in the faint shine of glass, began to shimmer unnaturally. Alara suddenly understood. It had never been about one mirror. Reflections were everywhere. And somewhere, in every reflection, something was looking back. Alara stumbled backward, her heartbeat echoing loudly in her ears. The voice was everywhere now. Inside the window's faint shine, the glossy surface of her wardrobe, even the small metal handle of her drawer. Reflections were everywhere, and something was inside them. This isn't real, she whispered desperately, shaking her head. You're not real. The lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only faint outlines remained, the silver edges of broken glass catching the pale moonlight from outside. Then, one by one, every reflective surface began to glow softly. In each reflection, she saw a different version of herself. One smiling, one crying, one angry, one completely empty. They all turned their heads at the same time and stared directly at her. You cannot break us, they said together in a chilling harmony. Alara's fear rose again, but something else rose with it. Anger. She grabbed her blanket and threw it over the window. She turned her phone face down. She ripped down the small mirror near her dresser and smashed it under her heel. I don't need you, she screamed. The glowing reflections flickered violently. The whispering became distorted, like broken radio signals. You are us, the voices hissed weakly. No, Alara said firmly, breathing hard. You are only fear. One by one, the glowing reflections faded. The room returned to darkness. Silence followed. Slowly, the lights flickered back on. Everything looked normal again. Alara stood in the center of the room, shaking but determined. No more mirrors. No more reflections. She walked to the bathroom door and stopped. Inside, she could hear faint breathing, and she knew she hadn't left anyone in there. Alara stood frozen outside the bathroom. The breathing from inside was slow, steady, calm, not frightened. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the doorknob. The metal felt icy against her skin. I'm not afraid, she whispered to herself, though her racing heart betrayed her. The breathing stopped. Silence filled the hallway. For a moment, she thought maybe she had imagined it. Maybe her mind was still playing tricks on her after everything that had happened. Then the bathroom light flicked on by itself. A thin line of brightness appeared under the door. Alara swallowed hard and slowly pushed the door open. The bathroom looked normal. The sink, the towel, the small mirror above the basin, everything in place. But the mirror was covered in steam, as if someone had just taken a hot shower. She stepped inside carefully. The air felt humid and warm, completely different from her cold bedroom. Her eyes fixed on the fogged mirror. With shaking hands, she reached forward and wiped the steam away. At first, she saw only her own reflection staring back at her. Pale, exhausted, wide-eyed. Then words began to appear on the glass. Not written from outside, written from inside. 3 slow letters formed through the remaining steam. Open. Her reflection did not move. It simply stared at her with an expression she could not read. The bathroom door suddenly slammed shut behind her. The lock clicked, and the reflection in the mirror slowly lifted its hand. But Alara hadn't moved. Alara's breath caught in her throat as the reflection's hand pressed flat against the inside of the mirror. She hadn't moved. Her own hands were still at her sides, trembling, frozen. But the other one, the one in the mirror, was fully aware. Open, it whispered again, though its lips barely moved. The sound echoed directly inside her head. The bathroom light flickered violently. The steam returned to the mirror, swirling unnaturally, forming faint shadowy shapes behind the reflection. Shapes that looked like more versions of her standing in the dark. No, Alara said, her voice breaking. You're not real. The reflection's eyes darkened. Then why are you shaking? It replied softly. The glass bulged outward slightly beneath its palm. Tiny cracks began to spread from where its fingers touched, thin lines crawling like veins across the surface. The door behind Alara rattled as if someone, or something, was trying to get in, or trying to get out. Let me be whole, the reflection said calmly. Suddenly, Alara felt a pull in her chest, not physical, but deeper, like something inside her was being tugged toward the mirror. Her thoughts blurred. Her memories flickered. She saw flashes of herself smiling confidently, speaking bravely, living without fear. The stronger version. The fearless version. The reflection pushed harder. The cracks widened. Alara stepped closer without meaning to. Her hands slowly began to rise, mirroring the reflection's movement this time. Their palms were inches apart, separated only by trembling glass. Just one touch, the reflection whispered. Alara closed her eyes and pressed her hand forward. Alara's palm touched the glass. The moment her skin met the mirror, a powerful surge of energy shot through her body. The cracks exploded outward in every direction, covering the entire surface like lightning frozen in time. For a second, everything went silent. No breathing, no whispering, no flickering lights, just stillness. Alara slowly opened her eyes. The reflection was no longer separate. It stood directly in front of her, not behind the glass, not emerging from it, but perfectly aligned with her movements. When she tilted her head, it tilted too. When she blinked, it blinked at the same time. The mirror looked normal again. Smooth, unbroken, as if nothing had ever happened. Her breathing steadied. The strange pulling sensation in her chest was gone. The fear that had consumed her for days felt distant now, smaller. The bathroom door unlocked with a soft click. Alara, her mother called gently from the hallway. Are you okay? Alara looked into the mirror one last time. Her reflection stared back, calm, confident, composed. But there was something different in her eyes. Not darkness, not evil, strength. I'm okay, she replied softly. This time, the voice sounded fully hers. Not steadier than she felt. Not separate, just balanced. She turned off the bathroom light and opened the door. As she walked away, the mirror remained still and silent. But in the faint darkness of the bathroom, after she left, for the briefest second, the reflection smiled first.